So it's clear if you spend any time on the internet that there's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there, but it turns out that they're not all the same, either in their goals or in their techniques. And joining us now to help break it down is author Nancy Rosenblum, author of A Lot of People Are Saying, The New Conspiracism and the Assault on Democracy. Nancy, welcome to The Damage Report.
Thanks for having me, John.
Very glad to have you here. This is a topic I care quite a lot about, and what I find so fascinating about your book is that you talk about how there are conspiracy theorists and there are people who sort of pursue conspiracism that aren't necessarily the same. Can you break down that differentiation?
That's right, but before I answer your question, I have a co-author on this book who I want to acknowledge, Russ Muirhead.
Thank you very much.
We wrote this book together. Yes, well, conspiracy theory in its classic form is a kind of explanation of an event. It says that 19 men in a remote corner of Afghanistan could not have brought down the World Trade Center and assaulted the Pentagon, or that a lone gunman could not have killed John F. Kennedy. So that's conspiracy theory, and conspiracy theorists really do a lot of work. They're like scholars. They have dots and patterns and evidence and argument. And sometimes these conspiracy theories are true, sometimes they're not, sometimes the evidence is warranted, sometimes it's not. But in any case, a conspiracy theory really is an attempt to persuade people that the unintelligible is intelligible and the unbelievable is believable by giving them reasoning that we can understand, whether we accept it or not. What we have today is the decoupling of conspiracy and theory. We have conspiracy without the theory. We have sheer assertion. By President Trump, Obama tapped my phones in Trump Tower, or the election was rigged. I really won the popular vote, except that Hillary Clinton managed to bus 3 million illegal voters to the polls, or Pizzagate, which is the most fantastic of all. And the point is that there are no dots, there are no patterns. There's bare assertion, or there's innuendo, or I'm just asking questions. And this kind of conspiracism has consequences that the classic conspiracism, I think, conspiracy theory does not.
Well, then that begs to follow up. What are the consequences that are different in the case of this new sort of wave of conspiracism?
Because what's being called for is not a belief in an argument. What's being called for is repetition and assent. And what makes this new conspiracism true enough is that a lot of people are saying it. That's Trump's mantra. Asked whether, for example, George Soros is bribing people to come across the southern border, Trump will say, it's true enough. A lot of people are saying it. And what that indicates is that what you're looking for is a kind of assent or repetition that's really political participation and political identification. And its consequences for us, I think, are as a nation and as public discourse are really significant because, for one thing, it's very disorienting. That is, they have changed the notion of what it means to know something from any kind of evidence or argument and reason to a kind of assertion and assent that's tribalistic. I think that's the main way of putting it. And if I can read you something. I want to read them so I get it clear, make sure that it's correct about what true enough sounds like. When a Republican congressman was asked about the allegation that the Democratic Party had conspired to create a clash between white nationalists and protesters in Charlottesville, he says, "I'm not saying it's true, but I'm saying it's completely plausible." Or where Trump's press secretary, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, was asked about the fact that Trump had tweeted a video that falsely showed a Muslim migrant committing an assault. She said, whether it's a real video, the threat is real. And so, this is the significance. It's not about warranted or unwarranted evidence and patterns and reasoning. It's about participation and assent.
So,
go.
Oh, in a lot of cases, the examples you're giving are either politicians or people who are representatives or spokespeople for the politicians. And generally, I would prefer if those weren't the sorts of people who are pursuing conspiracy theories or something like them. But in the past, you'd also have people in sort of alternative media, regular people who believe these things. Is this a case where this new wave is generally relegated to people in positions of authority, or do you see that same sort of stance by for instance, maybe the followers of a particular politician, their willingness to believe what would a thing that would require a conspiracy, but to not actually have any interest in uncovering it or doing the work of actually investigating it.
Right. I think you're right that the cast of characters is a large cast of characters. It's not just Trump or political officials, although those are the significant actors, because if it were just people on the internet or even conspiracy entrepreneurs on radio, I would not be hitting the mainstream media. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the conspiracism that I'm describing is carried out by Fox News and other cable channels and so on. So it's reaching vast numbers of people. And the significance of the fact that political representatives don't stand up and speak truth to conspiracy is enormous. It means that the consequences of this kind of conspiracism, which is to delegitimate institutions of all kinds, both regular party rivalry and also knowledge-producing institutions and so on, goes unchecked.
So what you've described, how does this change what we need to do or should do in responding to this sort of behavior?
I don't know that it changes it. It does raise the question whether, that old slogan that the answer is always more speech, whether that's a functional answer anymore. I think it's morally required, and it may be in some cases persuasive to people who are agnostic about all of this. You're never going to persuade a conspiracist of the fact that that what they're saying has no basis in reality, is a compromised account of reality. So there is always speaking truth to conspiracy, and I think that the most important people to do that really are, in this age of politics and Trump, political representatives. Those are the people who are, closely connected to these partisans, and it is a partisan event going on here. It's the conservative Republicans who are creating and propagating this kind of conspiracy. The leftists, while they may have be conspiracies, they're old-fashioned conspiracy theorists, right? They collect evidence. They make arguments. They're Rachel Maddow trying to connect the dots. Mm-hmm. Whereas it's the conservative Republicans that are this new form of conspiracism, which is bare assertion and just looking for assent and repetition. So I think speaking truth is one thing, but it has to be done by the people who are persuasive, which are people of your political party, political representatives. And then I think there's sort of what we call enacting democracy. That is, when institutions are attacked, sometimes the people in those institutions will stand up and explain why it is they're going through the processes that they're going through and the significance of it. When Trump, for example, who believes that elections are rigged, set up his Election Integrity Commission, do you remember that? Mm-hmm. Which was out to collect information from all the secretaries of state of all the states on voters in order to prove how many voters were fraudulent. Many, many states actually refused to participate. Mm-hmm. They said that this was a witch hunt against fraudulent voters who didn't really exist in great numbers, and they weren't going to participate in this sort of fraudulent creation of a suspect institution.
Well, Nancy Rosenblum, we want to thank you so much for joining us. Your book is A Lot of People Are Saying: The New Conspiracism and the Assault on Democracy, which you co-wrote with Russell Muirhead. And so thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, John. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much for watching this clip from The Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.